fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing today? I have been so hesitant to film this video because I know that people love and adore and obsess and just do the absolute most when it comes to Pat McGrath special shadows. And I get it, they are very, very beautiful, and especially compared to a lot of things on the market, they do stand out. But I personally feel like with my experience and all of the indie eyeshadows that I've tried, that Pat McGrath's eyeshadows are beautiful and nice and high quality, but not necessarily special to me and my collection. So in the spirit of Indiemas, I thought it might be helpful to share with y'all an indie brand that I feel has so many alternatives and just beautiful shadows similar to those of Pat McGrath, shiny, sparkly, just amazing on the eyes. But these palettes tend to have more shimmer options, more variety, instead of buying like $100 plus palette for 2 or 3 special shades. If you guys would like to see a single shadow version of this, just let me know. But today we are going to be focusing on one brand just for the simplicity of things. And I'm not claiming that these are perfect dupes and everything is 100% spot on. I'm saying these are alternatives. These are indie shadows that I feel like are just as good, if not better, than Pat McGrath, in my humble opinion. Somebody's already in the comment section right now like, Pat McGrath has the best shadows ever. I get it. I get it. If you love them, they work for you. I get it. But these are what I love. So let's go ahead and jump on it. So the indie brand that I've been talking about all along is actually going to be Adept Cosmetics. If you guys don't know them, you must be new to my channel because I talk about them all the time. They have the most beautiful special shadows, just super shiny, super intense. They've got duochromes, multi-chromes. They have truly improved their matte formula because a while ago, if you had said like, oh, let's compare their mattes to Pat McGrath, I'd be like, not quite close. But now their mattes are pretty good and they just have the most beautiful color stories and not just all pink all the time, over and over again. Not naming any names. So the palette that we can compare that I have the most similar shades to is Pat McGrath Utopian Dreams, but I do have a few other palettes that I'm going to be like just throwing in 1 or 2 comparisons here and there. So Utopian Dreams is a really beautiful like pink mauve color story. It does have some really beautiful special shadows in here. You've got like this kind of golden shade, which is a little bit more subdued, like nothing too crazy. You've got this shade right here, which is a multi-chrome, which has more of like a green base and then like an orange, yellow, gold flipping shade to it. And then we've got these 2 purples here. So we've got like a rosy gold purple with a sparkle, and then we've got like a true purpley blue with blue sparkles in it. Super, super pretty. I actually feel like the easiest thing to dupe out of this palette is the multi-chrome because there's so many brands doing multi-chromes, and personally I don't find there to be anything special about the Pat McGrath multi-chrome. It's like a soft silky texture. It's got a little bit more of a black base. You see the green, the orange. It's pretty, like no denying it. So here is from Utopian Dreams. And the shade that I wanted to compare that to is actually out of the Samarian Sunset palette from Adept Cosmetics. So there is a really beautiful multi-chrome in here that is called Praxis. I don't know if you guys can see right there. It has more of a black base. It's got the green, the pink, but this one is so much more intense. Like the shades are extremely similar, but it looks way more metallic. I mean, come on, like, look at that. So close. And due to the nature of those being multi-chromes and you not being able to see the best from a front-facing camera with a bunch of studio lights, I'm gonna add in a clip from my phone just so you can see how similar the shifts are as well. Okay, so next let's pull into the Plain Jane palette. So the original Plain Jane and Plain Jane Remastered, they both have this shade. There is ACI 6 and ACI 5, and they're both like bluey purple shifting shadows, and I find them both extremely similar to the special shade in the Pat McGrath palette. But here is what the original Plain Jane looks like. I actually feel like the original Plain Jane formula is slightly closer to the Pat McGrath, so that's what I'm going to swatch out for you. So here is what ACI 6 looks like, and I kind of have a combo of all these Adept purpley blue shadows on my lid today, but you can see it's so intense, super sparkly, but it has like this really pretty like metallic look to it. And this is a beautiful shadow, but the Pat McGrath special shades are a little bit more sheer, a little bit more like sparkly, but in a dry way. Like they do not feel creamy at all to the touch. And I know I've heard people say that they enjoy that if you have more like oily lids, then sometimes this type of shadow will last a little bit better on you. I personally don't have that issue, but I do find that for me, the Pat McGrath gives me more fallout than the Adept. So here is another little comparison. That one is like slightly, like the base is the same, but the blue is slightly lighter. So let's also swatch out the other shade right here, which is ACI 11. Like I said, I feel like these two are both similar. Here's ACI 11. That one's closer in color, but ACI 6 has a little bit more sparkle. So that's why I feel like they look perfect. Like together, they dupe it out. See? So similar. And then just to compare, here is 6 and 11 from the Plain Jane Remastered palette. Also a shade in the Heather Austin and Adept Cosmetics palette, Passport, which I feel like is the same vibe as the like lighter rose gold sparkly shade here. They're not the exact same shade, but the formula is kind of similar. The way that they look on the eyes, like they look like they're like long lost cousins. So here is the Pat McGrath. You can see it's like that really pretty like mauve shade with a golden shift to it. And then here is the Heather Austin, which the base is the same, but it's a blue shift. So hopefully you can see. Like I said, definitely not the same, but both very pretty, both similar vibes. So I didn't find a shade that was super similar to this like goldeny bronzy shade. That's the only one of the special shadows in this palette that I didn't have anything super close. But also keep in mind I'm focusing on alternatives to the Pat McGrath, and there are plenty of shades that are in the Adept palettes that are truly amazing, stunning, unique, and there's just nothing similar from Pat. For example, in Samarian Sunset, which we just went through, like this shade right here is like the most stunning like holographic shade. So pretty. And I also have the Subliminal palette, which is a little bit softer, a little bit more cool tones, and you've got some pretty shades going on in here, but specifically I wanted to talk about these two shades because I just don't find them to be that special. And like this is one of those palettes where if you're buying it for the special shades, only these last two are like really intense. So this blue honestly is not my favorite. It's like this black base and it just like leaves something to be desired. I just feel like it kind of looks flat on the eyes. Do a little swatch for you right there. You can see it just looks so gray. In the La Cienega palette from Adept, they have a blue, which is a very similar tone, but I feel like it's more of what I expected the Pat McGrath to be. It's the shade Hermosa Beach, and it's not super sparkly. Like I'm not saying that's what's missing. Like maybe that's not what was intended for this shade, but I just feel like it's so much brighter, so much more like shiny. Like I feel like that swatched out looks like what you would expect from the pan from Pat McGrath. And then just to show you another comparison, this shade right here is like a soft, like pale kind of yellowy gold. And this shade from Adept from the same exact palette is called Manhattan Beach. And it has a yellowy shift to it, but also a green. I don't know if you can see, it's just, if you like more fun shadows, I feel like Adept delivers. I also have the two Bridgerton palettes, which let's be honest, I bought because of the packaging, but we have some similarities here. So from the, what is this one called? This is the Diamond of the First Water palette. There's like this like soft, like satiny rose gold bronzy shade. Actually kind of similar to AC118. The Adept one is like slightly less purple, but again, just look at the formula. Like they're both super smooth, but they look pretty on par. And then for like this sparkly, like purpley blue shade, again, this is a special shadow that's just like super dry to the touch, but it has like this periwinkle base, this blue shift, and I kind of want to compare that to a shade from Plain Jane Remastered This one right here, it's not the exact same, but it kind of has a purple base and a light blue shift. But there's Pat and there is Adept. And from the Belle of the Ball palette, we have this really pretty kind of like greeny yellow shade with a bee on it. Such a pretty color. Again, super dry to the touch. I wanted to compare that to the shade Nora from the Minka palette because the tones are similar, but I actually think, in my opinion, the Adept is way prettier because it's just more intense, more sparkly, less dry to the touch. Also a really pretty like rose gold sparkly shade. Just looks like this, and it kind of reminds me of all the tones happening in Minka. There's nothing that's exactly the same. You've got like different pinks and golds and whatnot. I mean, maybe we could swatch Layla. It's not the same. It's not as pink. The tones are different. You can see there, or there's Maya, but this one's a little bit more purple. Again, it's giving sisters. So there's Pat, Adept, and Adept. There's also like a minty green shimmer in here, but it's just like a satin. Like I didn't even feel the need to compare this necessarily because it is pretty plain. Just looks like that. There is a shade from La Cienega called Redondo Beach, which is also like a minty shade. It's just like a little bit more silver. I know. The formulas are so different, but just thought I'd throw that in there. All right, y'all, so those are all the comparisons I wanted to do for you today. I don't have like an extensive Pat McGrath eyeshadow collection, just 4 palettes. Hopefully this was helpful, and I do truly believe that there's some people who are gonna find the Adept shadows better and some people who are gonna find the Pat McGrath shadows better, just depending on your personal preferences. But I feel like the moral of the story is that even if something is super hyped, even if it is really expensive, doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best product that's out there. There's so many amazing indie brands that are killing it and deserve just as much love. So that is gonna be all for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.